Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are looking at NBA best bets here. First day that we're running through this stuff with you in 2025. Hope you guys had a great New Year's. We've also got player props up, I should say, in a separate episode, so definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us all season. Nate, let's go ahead, jump right into your first NBA best bet here for Thursday night.
Yeah, it's a similar look to what we did last week, which was a team total against the Portland Trail Blazers. Lakers over 116.5. And I mean, hit this with the Jazz last week. The theory being like Portland isn't out there to play defense, especially with DeAndre Ayton as the anchor. But you never know when Anthony Simon, Sharp are going to get hot and make it a high scoring game, in which case you're covered either way rather than taking the Lakers on the spread here. But, I mean, the Lakers' offense is looking good. Austin Reeves being the focal point, and pretty much goes without saying Austin Reeves props are good to go here. Once again, they're only up like one rebound assist after like yet another almost triple-double. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to bet it that way, go for it. But I think the Lakers overall should score on this Blazers team. Jeremy Grant is out. Their defensive rating is 3 points worse without him. And more importantly, DeAndre Ayton is playing, and their defensive rating is 9 points worse with him this season. They're the last 9 without Ayton. They've held opponents under this team total 7 times. In their last 15 with Ayton, with a 125 defensive rating, they have allowed 12-3 to this team total. So, I mean, that is exactly the cap here. DeAndre Ayton drives tanking. He is a singular force that is fantastic for this Blazers team to just allow a parade to the rim. And they're somehow in December allowing the most points per game this past month. They allowed the 3rd most free throws and the 6th highest field goal percentage in the restricted area. So bravo, Mr. Ayton. Just allowing people to walk in, not fouling them, and just have the layup. Also the 6th most assists per game. As we mentioned, AR is keying that offense. That the Lakers are scoring 10 more points per game when he's been in there. They're playing at a faster pace, 98. Their pace is up in general in their last 7, which is key because you look at the last matchup and you might be scared like, oh, it was only 107-98 against the Blazers. That game was at a 94 pace. It was also situationally after the Lakers returned from a 4-game struggle fest on the road where they were pretty much rock bottom and exhausted. And they only had 1 day off before that. They had the NBA Cup break after that, and they just like dragged their feet to that win. And now they're kind of cooking. A little post-Christmas boost, it seems, again, because Austin Reeves is killing. They score 8 more points per game at home. So I just like Lakers offense here against a Blazers team that is really not interested in defense or really winning many games.
Yeah, not interested in any of it. I think the Lakers offense, they're going to continue to sort of at least dominate on offense. I'm not willing to just say that they're like an over moving forward. And I think their defense is going to be better though. I don't know how it isn't. If you take any D'Lo minutes and remove them and add DFS in any capacity, you're going to be better than you were beforehand on defense. But most importantly, for the offense and the point that you're making, just the comeuppance of Austin Reeves. I mean, it just seems like there's going to be a massive addition by subtraction for him. And the one thing that was in his way from really elevating his game is gone. Now it's in Brooklyn. So let's go ahead and move on to the Boston Minnesota game here. I'm taking the Celtics -4.5. I ain't scared of these Wolves. That's for damn sure. And this kind of comes back to fading the Wolves the other night, which is just like, I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep up on offense as much as anything. So it's an interesting matchup overall. And you'd think that this Minnesota team would be the team that was constructed to be able to handle a team like the Celtics, with just everybody except for Rudy being a very versatile sort of wing player that excels on defense outside of Julius Randle, honestly. And when Mike Conley's out there as well, a little bit more of a not turnstile, but definitely easier matchup. But other than that, like, the defense is good. It's there. It's not as good against pull-up shooting. I don't think that the way that this defense is constructed, or at least the sort of formation that it plays, if you will, is tailor-made to help out on the Celtics squad, because they don't really need the catch and shoot. They don't really need to move the ball, even though they move it super well. A lot of their shots end up being that the offense is imbalanced. Then they take a dribble away from the guy that's running at them, and then they get an open shot that way. Hence the pull-up shot as opposed to the catch and shoot, despite how good this team is at passing and moving the ball around the perimeter. And Minnesota, while they're number 3 in 3-point defense, both in attempts and makes, it's not as sexy off the pull up for them. They just don't get off of the shooters. They stay on their shooters, so there's no catch and shoot available, and they play that one on one defense with guys like JMD and Nikhil Alexander Walker, taking over the duties of guarding the best wing or ball handler on the other team, depending. But I don't really care about that. I like that this Boston team is on on the road, I should say, this season. 11-3 straight up by winning by almost 13 points per game on the road this year. Now they're 6-7 against the spread, but they're still covering that spread by 1.2 points per game because that spread is at an average of 9.4. Per game for them on the road, which is insane. That on the road you would have almost a double-digit average point spread per game that you're leading. But yeah, I was looking at the standings, like 24-9. Does anybody think that this still isn't the best team in the NBA in Boston? And most specifically, the way that they have it going on offense, like I just don't know how Minnesota keeps up with them. The way that Minnesota is really trying to score is get Ant going, or obviously just find him passing off of that to a degree. And now a little bit more Point Randall as well, but it's still all based on Point Randall is the catch and shoot. That's not going to be there. And then the Ant stuff is like, great, go ahead, Ant, get your 28, get your 30. That's what's going to happen. And everybody else is going to keep this thing under. You're not scoring like 110, essentially. That's where I'm at with this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting game for sure. I was looking at it. I mean, it's the smallest spread the Celtics have had all season. The only time they've been under 5, I think, since the opener, which had the same steam here, like started around 4 and started moving up to 5 and 5.5. And then, as we know, historic shooting to just crush the Knicks, a Knicks team that also, should have been well positioned personnel wise to stop them.
Right.
But it's a question for me, yeah, is like where their mentality is at. It's the front end of a back-to-back. It is the start of a gauntlet. Houston, OKC, and Denver all on the road here. Is this like their time where it's like, all right, it's go time. It's time to show that we are the best team in the NBA still, because they've just been like awful against the spread, as you mentioned, against these huge spreads, and not playing up to their standards in general. So is it go time? I'd like to think so. They started the road trip last year in this situation with a loss in Minnesota. So maybe they're like, all right, let's start it right and get this front end of the back-to-back. So be interested to see how that one goes. I'm going to muck it up with my second pick, though, and take the Brooklyn Nets plus 14 in Milwaukee. Nets are on a back-to-back. I don't care at all. I mean, that's not a factor with the Brooklyn Nets and their stable of 23-year-old wings who just play as hard as they possibly can for Jordi Fernandez. And they come out and they compete every game. They usually keep it pretty low scoring and they play slow, second slowest place in the league. And that's how they cover these big numbers. 12-6 against the spread on the road, 4-2 on back-to-backs. They actually allowed their fewest points per game on back-to-backs, and they've won 3 of 6 straight up. They've actually beaten the Bucks 2 of 3 this season, as we know. I mean, the last one was without Giannis or Dame. So obviously the Bucks are going to be able to have more success on offense here, but a 23 to 22 assist to turnover ratio is alarming. It is also, again, a tip of the cap to Jordi Fernandez, who knows how to build a wall, how to force teams to beat you with ball movement. Is not going to let Giannis just go right to the rim. If with those pretty athletic dudes he has there to try to force some stuff out of there. They're actually forcing the highest assist to field goal ratio in their last 3 years. Brooklyn and Milwaukee, despite shooting pretty well, only getting 108 a game in these 3 meetings with a 117 defensive rating. So it's not like they're gangbusters either. They're 5-9 against the spread at home. They've failed to cover in 3 of their last 4 when they've been -8 or higher. Against the Wizards, right? The Hornets, like if they get a bottom barrel team, they're not necessarily like flexing. And partially like they're not running away at the end. They're 30th in fourth quarter points per game, whether it's a close game or they're trying to blow them away to get you this number. So, but Dame being back is key because D'Angelo Russell 1 game for this Nets team, and now he's going to be a driving force of an offense that had a huge void without Schroeder. That's why the spread is probably 4 points higher. It's because their offense looked gross. Spread is also higher because Toronto just shot the lights out last night. But they sat Cam Thomas in that game too. So now we're looking at both D'Lo and Cam Thomas. They can keep up a little bit. Their net rating is only -2.8 with Cam, -9 without him because he can score. And I lean towards the 19.5. I placed a little bet on that before it got juiced up. for Cam, even though he had a minutes limit. He had 25 points in 25 minutes with a 50% usage rate against Orlando. He's just like shoot first, shoot second, and has averaged nearly a point per minute his last five against the Bucks. So I like those two guys to score enough to keep him in it.
Yeah. I can see. I have no way to. I don't know how to do this with this team at this point. For Brooklyn, but I know that they're going to be able to score a bit better, and I lean towards the overs being a case for them as well. It's the only way that they're going to stick around, and I do think that's my slightly preferred bet for this one is to go over on the points here, which you can get. I'm just making sure I have the right number still. Bring that up. 220. Yeah, 220. It did go up from 218. Yeah, it's up to 221 exactly on DraftKings, and you can still get 220 and a half. And it is up from 218 and a half. And I saw it yesterday, assuming it would go up, and thought about hitting it and didn't. But like, I've got to handicap this as like, I've got a backcourt that's going to have D'Lo and Cam Thomas in it. Sometimes there's going to be points available, but I do think they're both obviously going to be scoring as well. So we'll see how the offense opens up. But most importantly, too, is like, yeah, Milwaukee. Where are we at, man? Like, where are we at since the in-season tournament, or sorry, the Emirates Cup? Where are we at with that now? Because everything has been trending towards y'all are struggling now, back to exactly what you were, kind of like the Lakers last season, where the Lakers win the cup, then they come back after going all out, and it's just like the next like 2 weeks of the season, you're like, well, this team isn't good enough for the playoffs right now. So Milwaukee not in as dire of a situation, but they've got a lot to prove here, and Brooklyn can play pretty damn carefree. They've got the two most carefree guards in the league, maybe when it comes to shot selection and the like. So let's go ahead and go over to Indy and Miami, and I'm taking Indy plus 2.5 here. But I'm also leaning to the under. Can I just put you on the spot and ask you which one you like best, since I didn't get to before the show started? 221 and a half to the total.
What is it?
221 and a half on the total.
Yeah, I would like that more. I mean, I can't believe you're taking a Heat game in general, but fading the Pacers offense is probably the look here against Miami. Yeah, so I think under goes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna start betting on the Heat at some point in my life once Jimmy Butler's gone. He's the biggest bane of my existence when trying to bet on them. But with the way that things are going right now for Miami, I know they said he's not on the trading block, but I don't know. Pat Riley, do I believe what he says in a press conference? I don't know why I would. Like, that's driving the price up for Jimmy Butler. So that's where we're at with Miami still. But the under, if you want the under 21 and a half, or 221 and a half rather, that's where I'd be looking for the total. But I did take them plus 2.5, and the reason being, just like I just still don't really trust Miami. I watched that game against the Pellies last night, and the way that the Pellies are able to get open shots, and teams are able to get open shots against a Miami team that has been, pretty good in its ball pressure. It's pretty good in terms of making, forcing turnovers. It's been pretty good. It hasn't been good down low. It's been better at the rim, I would say, than it has, in the paint in general, as they're getting a lot of stuff in the paint against them. That's a really big problem. And that's what, Indy, the offense, yes, it's probably fadeable. Their offensive rating on the season now is 11th best. In the last 10, they're up to 6th, but the last 5, a little bit more of a downturn, back down in the offensive rating. But everything here is also leaning towards the pace for them, and more specifically, the transition and the going to the rim. That's the thing that I've seen from them a little bit more than earlier in the year, when they were still somewhat of a 3-point shooting team, and now they are getting into the paint with a lot more frequency. Over the course of the last 10 games, they're actually third in the amount of paint attempts that they're taking. And we're talking about a team in Miami that is 4th worst in its paint defense right now. And Bam, like, I don't know what you want to say on defense. I'm not really sure what's going on, but he has not quite been the anchor that we've seen from them. And there's probably a little bit of that too, with the inconsistency with the lineups, not being able to just depend on certain defenders being out there consistently. Haywood Highsmith missed time earlier. Jaime Jaquez has missed time. And then they're adding sometimes Pell Larson in there and Jovic, both minus negatives on defense, especially compared to the other options around them. And that's a big reason why I think guys have just been able to get into the paint. And unfortunately for Bam, what's he supposed to do when it's 2-on-1 inside the paint each time, as they're giving up a lot on the drive as well? That's a huge problem. And then, for what Miami wants to do on offense, it's still just a lot of Tyler Hero and then spray to the corners or spray to the spot ups as best you can. Same for Bam. And that's just not the best way to score against this team, which is much better against the catch and shoot for Indy, and does limit that stuff a lot more than just the pull-up. So yeah, Tyler Hero probably going to be able to do his thing off the dribble and get some points tonight. But overall, as a team, I think Indy's going to have the advantage here on the second night of a back-to-back for Miami. So I'm going to roll with the Pacers in this one.
Yeah, definitely tough to deal with Indy if you're on tired legs and you're on a back-to-back. And they seem to have figured some stuff out offensively. I think, I probably wouldn't take the under now that I'm looking at it. Just the way the Pacers have found
Yeah.
their pace and space lately, and that Miami might not have the legs here to guard them. But yeah, I don't know. We're still waiting on the Heat, here to just get rid of Jimmy Butler and show us what their plan is.
Yep. Yeah, and they might once again just prove me wrong because it's a random moment in time that they're going to play above their pay grade. But I would say they sort of used up a bit of lady luck last night. To be honest, if you watch that Pelicans game, the way that they were able to pull it out eventually. But either way, that is all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page. You can also check out the Play of Props, which we're bringing you alongside these each and every day moving forward. So until we see you next, happy betting.